Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this third and final day of EuroDIG. I hope that you had a great time so far. On Monday, if you were here for day 0, yesterday, if you're here for day 1, and today is the last day. So you have one more main session here in the hemicycle today. It is titled The Age Verification Dilemma, Balancing Child Protection and Digital Access Rights. As someone who used to work in the Children's Rights Division here at the Council of Europe, this is a topic that's very interesting, very controversial. All sorts of ideas come and clash in this debate, so I'm really looking forward to it. Before we begin, though, and we hand over to Karen, I'll hand over to João, our online moderator, to go over the rules. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning. So for those joining on Zoom, we'd appreciate you that you raise your hand when you want to take the floor, and I will be the one signaling the moderator and allowing you to unmute when your statements are invited. For those who want to join Zoom and are in the room, I ask you that you join with your microphone muted and the speaker of your device turned off. And now I hand the floor to the moderator of the session.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Mulberry. I'm with the IEEE Standards Association, and I'd like to welcome you to our discussion today on age verification and the dilemmas that are being faced by balancing child protection against digital rights. But before we get started, I thought I'd like to recognize the fact that May 11th was the 3rd anniversary of the EU Better Internet for Kids strategy, just in case you missed that, because that's actually tied to a lot of the things I think we're going to be discussing today. Now, I'd like to outline the program for you. First of all, when you speak, there's a button by your microphone that you need to push so your microphone can be activated and we can hear you. So it's very important to note that. And the fact that for our program, we're going to have some key participants provide different aspects of age verification and online protection. They're each coming from a different industry, different perspective, and different passion. So that should lend a lot of diversity to our discussion later on today. Now, first, I need to provide some context for you. There is a very interesting dilemma between what is age verification and what is age assurance. They seem to be the same, but they're actually very different. So age verification is generally defined as the process of confirming that an individual is of a required minimum age, typically to access certain products, services, or content that are legally restricted based on age. So that requires proof. Age assurance is a process of estimating or verifying a user's age to ensure that they can appropriately access age-restricted content, services, or products. Now, you look at the process, and I know in a lot of the legislation, the terms seem to be intertwined, and so it's just nice to know the perspective of when you're talking about verifying something, it's actually based on proof. The age assurance actually is proof, but also estimating that the respondent is of the appropriate age to access the content. So what I'd like to do to get us started is introduce our key participants who will provide their expert opinions on what is going on within their industry or their company regarding age verification and child online protection. So we have Tatiana, and I'm going to be informal here, who's a senior advisor, institutional relations from the Internet Society. We have Ian Corby, he's executive director, Age Verification Providers Association. He's also chair of the IEEE Standards Association Interoperable Age Verification Standards Development. Michael, who's head of the EuroDIG Germany, part of the Independent Federal Office for the Enforcement of Children's Rights. And Mannion, who's a senior EU Affairs Officer, 5 Rights and from the United Kingdom. So I'd like to welcome our speakers, and we will start off with Tatiana, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me on this panel. At the Internet Society, we believe that Internet is for everyone. Internet improves lives of people and our society for the better. Our goal is for Internet to be open, globally connected, secure, and trustworthy. And in this light, I want to start with one big question. Do mandatory age verification tools make Internet more secure? We do understand that there is a problem. There is a problem of child safety online. And we do understand that protection of children is a very important goal. But what is no less important is how we go about it. And this is where we at the Internet Society have some concerns about mandatory age verification tools. And we believe, as we proceed with rolling out mandatory age verification, especially in terms of deploying the technical tools, there are quite a few risks that have to be addressed before we proceed with those. These tools affect not only kids, they will affect everybody online, kids and adults alike. And they create certain risks to privacy and security. They potentially can create barriers to accessing the Internet and digital services. And lastly, they can impact the global interoperable nature of the Internet. And I will briefly go through these risks. The first set of risks we see are the risks to privacy and security. Mandatory age verification tools often force users to share very sensitive information, for example, financial accounts or government's issued ID, just to prove that they are old enough. So this is not uncommon to require to upload this ID on the website. And here is the problem. The more sensitive data we collect, the more attractive these systems and the more vulnerable these systems become to all sorts of misuse, from data breaches to other types of misuse. And even if we set aside the issue of malicious actors being interested in this data, how can we ensure, and here again I'm highlighting the risk, how we ensure that these data are not amassed, not sold to the third party to track users, and not misused in other ways. Now, of course, I know that we can say we do perform age verification checks in the physical world. Fine, we do. I can totally agree we do. But in the physical world, in the offline world, this age verification is temporary. You show your ID and you don't give it to anybody, right? You don't upload it anywhere. In the digital world, you upload it and it leaves the digital trail. And there is no way to actually safely, maybe there is a way to safely upload your ID, but there is no way to ignore the fact that it can be tracked, that it can be collected, data can be breached. And in this regard, we are witnessing the increasing trend of lack of trust in the Internet. And this situation will not help to solve this problem. It's going to get worse. Research already shows that when people fear that they can be tracked, that their data can be breached, they will be less inclined to use these legitimate services that require age verification. So to sum up, age verification, mandatory age verification with technical tools, at least for now, does not offer a holistic or safe approach to protecting young people online if we do not address these risks. Instead, we can create false sense of security, and more importantly, by aiming at protecting children, we actually we are endangering everybody online. So we believe that one of the aspects to solve this problem is to ensure that mandatory age verification tools comply with privacy and security guidelines, and they can be audited independently with reports being publicly available. Now, the second set of risks, no less important, are barriers to accessibility. So you might think that age verification is just a minor bump on the road. Like we think in the physical world when we are buying alcohol, we are showing our ID and going away. It's not the same in the digital realm. For some people, it's not a minor bump on the road. It's going to be a huge roadblock to the accessibility. Think about those people who do not have government-issued ID. Think about those people who cannot provide these ID or financial account information for various reasons. And most of the time, it would affect elderly people or marginalized and disadvantaged communities who already have problems accessing various digital services. In addition to financial information and ID, of course, one can say, but you can use facial scanning tools. But it is well known, even though technology advances, that these tools are working much less perfectly on people with darker skin tones or on people with disabilities, on older individuals. And then I know that this is a very uncomfortable thought, because you all probably have a device in your pocket or in your bag, or a laptop with working webcam or device camera, but it's not the case for everybody in this world. Some people just do not have this. So older adults might have their access hindered because of certain health conditions, cataracts, heart veins, stroke, and other conditions basically block them from using these tools or making the use of these tools very difficult. And it's not only older adults who are affected. People in their late teens and younger adults might be also affected by these facial recognition tools because they have range of several years. So they also can be disproportionately impacted. And these people who face access barriers will be cut off from trustworthy services that are trying to solve the problem of protecting children online. And what really concerns us is that they might end up in darker corners of the internet. And this is the opposite of what we want to solve, what we want to achieve by trying to introduce tools for safety online. And I know that there are claims that technology is improving, that technology is solving the biases, the technology can recognize skin tones better, but technology cannot address all these issues. So technology maturity addresses only the issues of technical verification on the layer where it's performed. Right? It might address this problem, but beyond this layer, even if we have a foolproof technology, this is the claim that I'm personally, I would probably argue against, that we can have a foolproof technology, but imagine that we do. Beyond this layer, what happens to data? How we address privacy and security risks? Not all of access barriers created by technology are technical. So it does not solve these issues, and certainly it does not solve the issue of trust on the internet. And lastly, I'm wrapping up. This mandatory age verification technology, if deployed by various countries for various services, various ages, can have impact on global interoperability of the internet. The more countries are rolling these solutions for various ages, for various platforms, for various requirements, it can affect the globally connected internet and its interoperability. And I know that we're at EuroDIG, European Dialogue on Internet Governance, but we do have to think globally. We do need to ensure that by dealing with societal problems, by dealing with this important issue of insurance safety of the most vulnerable online, we do not break the technical layer of the internet, which actually provides us with this connectivity. So globally, we believe that this solution, if we move forward with age verification technology, has to move to the globally negotiated standards, which will include various stakeholders, which will be done in a multi-stakeholder manner, allowing to factor these risks and ensure that we put security and privacy at the core of our solutions, and also that we preserve the global interoperability of the internet. And to wrap up, I want to just give an example of how it can be done without these risks. For example, there are websites that are self-labeling with metadata to allow parents to control access of their kids to harmful content or adult content. So these tools empower and protect families, empower and protect users without risking their privacy and security. I thank you. Thanks for having me, and I hope that we have a very interesting dialogue here. Thank you.
All right, next we have an online participant. Ian Colby will actually speak on his activities with the Age Verification Association and standards development. Ian, over to you online.
Thank you very much indeed for having me today. My name is Ian Corby. I'm the Executive Director of the Age Verification Providers Association. We're a global trade body representing over 30 different providers of age verification and age estimation technology, which are the two categories of age assurance that we talk about. So I hope I can provide some reassurance to the previous speaker. What we're trying to do in the world of age assurance is to apply the same norms of society in the real world to the online world. So we wouldn't allow our kids to walk into downtown Strasbourg and walk into a nightclub or a casino, or I don't know if they have them, a strip club, without checking their age. And we think we need to be able to do the same thing online. And we can do it in broadly the same way. And if we can put a man on the moon, then we can certainly prove your age online without putting your personal data or privacy at risk. And that is the essence of the age assurance industry, proving your age without disclosing your identity. So the principal way that we would do that is by using an independent third party to do the age assurance, and then they simply say yes or no to the digital service that needs to know whether you're over or under or between a certain age. And it's important to know that that third party, once it has checked your age, does not retain any personal data at all. And in fact, some of the methods don't even require that third party to touch the data in the first place. So let me give you a few examples of how we might do that. We heard earlier the use of digital of your physical ID to create a digital identity. And that's very straightforward. You just take a selfie, you show your ID to your camera, we compare the ID photo to the selfie. We make sure you're a live person, not some AI generated image, or the document's not a fake image. And if the two match, then we can calculate your exact date of birth and therefore your exact age. Now, that process could be done in the cloud, but there are some companies which now do it entirely on your device. So your personal data, your ID and your selfie never leave the palm of your hand. We can also use things like open banking, where you just log into your bank and the bank simply confirms, yes, this person is over 18 or this is their date of birth to a third-party provider. There are some innovative methods using estimation. We heard about facial age estimation already. That's accurate to within about a year. And it's important to note that the concerns around racial bias really arose around facial recognition technology in its early days. Facial estimation technology is a very different technology and suffers much less from bias, but we do include in our requirements for any of these technologies analysis of whether a system is biased or not. Now, of course, the main reason why things are biased is because the way AI works is you train it with some faces where you know the age, and you then apply patterns from those faces to faces where you don't know the age. and look to see which is the most likely match. So as long as you have a very diverse range of training data, then you will have less problems in terms of any bias in the outcome. Now, those systems are generally working to within a year or two of your actual age. So that's not great if you are just turning 18 and you want to buy alcohol for the first time. But you're if as long in the tooth as I am, then if I'm estimated to be over 18, there is absolutely no chance that I'm under 18. So moving on to sort of the different, I hope you can still hear me. My email just, things had a little glitch there.
Yes, Ian, we can.
Thank you. We are also applying some standards in this industry. So we mentioned the IEEE already. There's the standard 2089.1. And that is not just a standard about accuracy, but it also makes sure that the different solutions deal with things like bias, but also how do they handle human rights? How do they handle privacy and data security? So it's a very holistic assessment of any age assurance solution before you could be certified against that standard. And the ISO is also working on a standard which went through its final stage yesterday, in fact, so should be published in October, 27566-1. And that's a broader framework, and there'll be other standards that follow from the ISO. We did some work recently with ETSI, the European standards body, to look at the gaps between what we need and what standards exist. And I think there are some further standards that will be required in sort of the periphery, but the core standards are there. I also want to briefly touch on interoperability because this has become more and more important. And again, this is really useful for accessibility and inclusivity because this means you just need to find one way to prove your age to one website, and then you can seamlessly reuse that same check on any other digital service that you need to access. And there are a couple of major initiatives around this, one in the private sector and one in the public sector. So the European Commission has just finished developing a what they call an interim app. It's a sort of slimmed down version of what will in future be the European Digital Identity Wallet. And that's being offered to member states, and they can implement it in their member state with a degree of sort of local design. And that allows you to use your national ID to turn that into an age token. And the reason they didn't wait for the European wallet is because there are some issues around traceability and trackability if you use the technology designed into the wallet. The interim app has mitigated those risks, so you are not traceable or trackable when you use this new interim solution to prove your age online. That's going to mostly focus at the 18+ use case to start with. And then there's a second area where I've been involved called EU Consent, which was originally a European Union funded project to do interoperability, which allowed us to tie together different age verification providers. And we've now moved on to a decentralized model for that, where you can download a small mini app into your browser, not one you get from the App Store, it just automatically drops into your browser. And that allows you to have a token on your device, which other age assurance providers can see, and then they can rely on that to redo the age check again seamlessly without you needing to be involved. We might, from time to time, ask you to put in a PIN number, a password, or biometric password to prove that you're the same person who did the original check. There is some talk about moving where we do the age checks around what we call the technical stack. So maybe we don't have the digital service be responsible. We put the responsibility, for example, on the app stores. The app stores are resistant to that. And my main question on that is, who would be liable if it goes wrong? Are we saying that Google and Apple suddenly become liable for every failure of age assurance around the world? So as we look forward, I hope we can divide the debate between the technology, which I believe can deliver and mitigate all the risks that we've heard about earlier, and the policy of whether it's a good thing to provide a degree of information about age on the internet. My personal belief is it's well overdue that we make the internet age aware, not identity aware, but age aware. And that's what we aim to do as a trade association and through some of these projects I've described. So thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Ian. Now for our next speaker, I have Michael, who will give us a perspective from what's going on in Germany. Thank you.
thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful evening yesterday, and today the headache is not too bad. But I'm happy to present here the work of the Federal Agency for Child and Youth Protection in the Media, or actually the Federal Office for Child and Youth Protection, for the enforcement of children's rights and digital services, because that's what we do. So we are a competent authority regarding Article 28 DSA, and we are responsible for the implementation of precautionary measures. For example, child-friendly presets, parental guidance tools, reporting systems, and so on. So we work on a child rights-based approach regarding the General Comment 25 and so on, and it's so not just only about protection, but also about safe participation. So what we do is that we analyze platforms which are relevant for young people. We then analyze the individual risks arising out of the different functionalities on the platforms. We check if all risks are already covered by the precautionary measures which might already be implemented, and this is actually never the case. So there's still a lot to do for us. We then get in touch with the provider and start a so-called dialogic regulation where we discuss possible solutions. If they're willing to comply, it's all good and we're fine. If they don't, then we start an enforcement by forcing them with fines and so on. So to guarantee safe spaces online, the platforms need to implement precautionary measures. Actually, yesterday, the EU Commission presented the guidelines, or the draft for the guidelines for Article 28. And we are part of the working group where the guidelines were discussed, and we're actually pretty happy that the approach of individual solution and not this like one size fits it all can be found in the guidelines, in the draft. So individual solutions for each service and the necessity for different precautionary measures to create safe spaces for young people. In this context, age assurance plays an important role, or actually two roles. So it can be used to exclude minors from inappropriate content. If the system is effective, it's not just, are you over 18? Yes, no. But as it is important that young persons are being prevented from inappropriate content, it's also necessary to see the possibility of age assurance when it comes to the safe usage of platforms. By implementing functional mechanisms, the before-mentioned precautionary measures can really work. So let's take child-friendly presets, for example. You can have the best settings by default. You could ever imagine like limitation between communication between adults and young persons to prevent cyber grooming and so on. You can have limits regarding the time of usage, profiles automatically private and so on. But when you can open an account and can just like type in a date of birth, which might be fake, this just doesn't work. So the child-friendly presets can only work if the platforms knows the age. It doesn't have to know like the exact age, but maybe an age bracket, like the person is between 13 and 15 or 16, 17, and so on. So age assurance can be an important factor regarding preventing children from adult content, but age assurance also has to be an important tool when it comes to enable a safe usage for children and young persons. That's what respects the necessity of protection on the one hand and the safe participation and the right of safe participation on the other. To complete our holistic approach, media literacy regarding minors and parents as well has to be forced to make it a complete picture. You see, there's a lot to do, and we have to think new and work together to create a safe environment for young persons online. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Walk faster. And now I'd like to introduce our last speaker, who will provide a very unique perspective from the Five Rights Foundation and all the work they see globally. Mannion, please join us.
Thank Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many people in the room and some familiar faces as well. So as was introduced, my name is Manon and I work at Five Rights Foundation. We are an NGO that really work for children and we specialize on the digital space. So our mission is really to make the digital environment safe for children by design and by default. And so coming from that perspective, I want to go back a bit to a bit what Michael was saying previously as to, what are we trying to achieve really with age assurance and with age verification? Is this children's rights respecting as well? We're talking about the rights of everyone, but we should also talk about the rights of children in this space. And finally as well, what do children actually think about those different measures that are actually being put on them? And so I think here, a good start is also to really see that the digital environment wasn't created for children, it wasn't designed for children. Children have been, really using the digital environment as much as they can. They love it, they are out there, but the digital environment wasn't made safe for them. And when we talk to our youth ambassadors, what they tell us is that they feel addicted, they feel that, the internet has a big impact on their body image, on their sleep, on their education. We know that, algorithms and recommender system push problematic contents onto kids. We know that, children can actually be reached by groomers online. There's a lot of issues that we see on the online environment. And what can age assurance and age verification actually bring to that? And I think, Michael really said it out. There is two roles that we see for age assurance and age verification. There is one which is about, blocking access to certain types of contents or services, and the other one which is about bringing out actually more age-appropriate experiences for children. And I think when we look a bit at the policy debates right now, we've seen a lot of focus on, banning and blocking children. We hear a lot about social media bans. We hear a lot about age verification for porn platforms, but that's only really one of the uses that we see with age verification and age assurance, and that should not be our entire focus. If we bring a children's rights perspective, to this entire debate, it's important to recognize that the digital environment, yes, bring a lot of risk in terms of, children's rights to sexual exploitation, for example, to commercial exploitation, but it also brings a lot of positive perspective in terms of the right to participation, their right to learn, to connect, to message their friends, to be active as citizens as well in our societies. And so that's why we see also a lot of potential for the second role of age assurance in terms of providing actually age-appropriate spaces for kids. And here I think it's very important that we see age assurance only really as an enabler. It's only really a first step. Whether or not whether someone is a kid is not going to suddenly make the environment safer. You need to afterwards actually adapt the design of your platform, right? And that means changing your recommender system. That means having default settings. And if you don't do all of that, then age assurance is not going to solve anything. Age assurance per se is not a silver bullet. It's not a one-stop solution. It's not going to make the environment safer for kids. And I think it's important that we really need to reframe that debate. And we've heard a lot about the risk, and those risks are real. They're real risk with age assurance in terms of privacy, in terms of additional commercial exploitations, in terms of exclusion. And I think those risks are not only present for the general public, but also for children. Children also have a right to privacy. We see a lot about age verification as a way to age gate and to actually block children's access out. This is also exclusionary for children. But I think, if we put the right system in place, if we have a strong regulatory framework around how we use age verification and the type of technology that we have in place, then we can solve a lot of those problems. And we heard a lot earlier, from Ian about the fact that you need standards in place, you need to have audits, you need to have certification mechanism to make sure that at the end of the day, age assurance is privacy preserving, it is done in a proportionate manner, it is accessible. We've just heard about the Commission draft guidelines on Article 28. They also tell us that, for example, if you want to have an age estimation system in place, you should actually provide two different types of mechanism to make sure that if people cannot choose one, they should be able to use the other one. So there is a lot of solutions that are actually possible and that can be put in place out there. And finally, what do children actually think about those age assurance mechanisms? At the end of the day, I think this should be our first questions when we're talking about children's rights online. One of the key rights that we need to keep on repeating is, of course, children's rights to participation, children's rights to be heard. And I think, as a lot of marginalized communities, they're usually excluded from those debates. And I think it's also quite clear when we see different policy debates happening around the world, especially in terms of social media bans, we rarely hear about what actually children think. And I think when you talk to children and when you ask them, how do they use already existing age assurance mechanism, a lot of them will actually tell you that they circumvent existing self-declaration mechanism. Sometimes their parents actually also help them, circumvent those mechanisms, which kind of proves that we cannot only rely on those kind of mechanisms for ensuring safety online. But when you talk to kids, when you actually explain to them, what are we trying to do with age assurance, they also tell you that at the end of the day, they agree, with certain types of platforms actually asking their age and actually trying to verify it. And I think here as well what's very interesting is when you ask kids, they might tell you that for themselves, they don't need it, because kids like to, believe that they are able to deal with whatever risk, but they recognize really the use for their peers. So they want to make sure that there is actually a better environment for younger generations as well. And when you talk to kids as well, they are very cognizant of the fact of of course, they don't want their privacy to be infringed. They see, really the need for proportionality there as well, so it needs to be context dependent. Some of the children, for example, didn't necessarily see why you should have age assurance mechanism on video games. So I think, in some ways, when you talk to kids, you actually get to see all of the problems, but also a lot of the solutions. And I think here, that's really my last point. If we want to really design an environment for children, we really need to design it with them. They're the ones who are actually, living. They're the ones who are aware of the risk. They are the ones who also put in place solutions to deal with this risk, and we really need to make them the center of the conversation. So yes, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Now you've heard from our experts talking about some of the key areas that they are focused on. At this point, we have people that have registered to make statements. We'd like to turn and allow them to make their statements, and then we'll move into an interactive discussion based on all of the perspectives that have been presented so far this morning, the strategies, the issues, the implementation approaches, and the regulation. So please, let's go to the online statements.
We're back. So actually the first statement is by Thorsten Krause, representing civil society, please. Number 31. Press the button. No.
Oh. Good morning. Hello. My name is Thorsten Krause. I'm a political scientist and child rights researcher working at the Digital Opportunities Foundation based in Germany. Thanks for all your input in this discussion. We've heard that children have several rights, the right for participation, for example, but also the right for protection. And so I guess that's our duty to create safe digital environment to serve the best interests of the child. And I guess that besides media literacy, parental control mechanisms, peer guidance, that age assurance could be a really key to deliver such safe digital environments. But we have also to address the concerns you've raised, Tatiana, because children also have the right to privacy or the protection of their anonymity. And so I guess that's really important what Ian said, that technology can deliver and to overcome these challenges. There are solutions in place, and I would like to have that we use this multi-stakeholder approach to find solutions together, how to create safe environments for all people, for children, for adults, for all, and not use age verification or age assurance measures to ban someone out of something. We have to include all people in the digital environment and also children, and we can use age assurance mechanisms to create a safe digital environment. Thanks.
Thank you, Thorsten. Next up, we have Victoria Omelianenko, representing International Governmental Organization at 105. Thank you. You have to press the button next to the microphone, I think. Next to the microphone. There's a round button. Yeah, on the right. No.
Now, yeah. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Victoria Omelianenko. I'm the project officer in the International Telecommunication Union, Europe office, And it's also from our side a great pleasure to contribute to this topic. And of course, many speakers already highlighted the importance of the addressing risks for child protection and for the children. And from our side, from my side as well, working many years in this field with children, with different stakeholders, I would like to emphasize also the need for the multi-stakeholder approach in terms of stakeholders who are dealing with children on the daily basis. We start from the policy making, speaking about the regulations and the need for the strong regulation at the international, European, national level with many already actions in place. We also see the rising need and of more engagement with the private sector as well on the regular basis, equipping them with the knowledge and skill how to implement the regulation. We also work on the regular basis and need to continue work actively in different contexts. And of course, it's the best way works when you are with them in the room, talking, exchanging the views, seeing the real problems on the ground in the different countries from our experience as well. And we see that parents and educators are in need on the skills, first of all, to be able to protect and to implement those actions that are already developed by the policymakers, that sometimes are even in place by ISPs or private sector in general with big tech platforms. But these are the people who are all the time with the children, stakeholders that are crucial technically for providing the ecosystem of the safe environment for kids, starting from parents and educators. And on the primary importance, again, working and teaching the children itself with the tools, with clear tools, how to protect and how to prevent the risks from the early age. And having this ecosystem approach to working with different stakeholders, both of the regulatory and capacity building activities, is important. And we have the ITU channel protection guidelines for all stakeholders, making sure that everyone is aware and everyone is contributing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Modestus Amuts, legislator. Are you in the room? Or online? Nope. Swiftly moving on. Sanya Bhatia for academia. Online? No. Okay. Next up is Özgür Kesim from the technical community, apparently online.
Özgür, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. I'm Özgür Kesim, a CEO of Code Blau GmbH, a security company from Berlin, Germany. We are also a member of a consortium called NGI Thaler that brings digital payments to the Eurozone that is privacy preserving. And in this context, I want to report to you and pay your attention to a solution for age verification that we have implemented in GNU Thaler, the payment system, which preserves, protects the privacy of the buyers, in this case also of the children, and also aligns with the property of subsidiarity, where the ability to pay and prove the age is bound to a coin by the parent, for example. So the digital payment system GNU Thaler operates in a way where customers receive digital tokens with which they can pay. These tokens have a denomination, and our extension for age verification allows to bind the ability to prove sufficient age with a particular coin. So there's no involvement of any ID verification and so on necessary in the context of digital payments. In a very pragmatical sense, it would be like, as a parent, I could give my child coins to buy for online games, for instance, and bind to this particular money the ability to pay for up to 14 years of age, so that the child can then themselves go online and pay for the online game without any involvement of the parents afterwards. The benefit of this approach is that it binds the ability to pay, or it binds the age verification to the ability to pay, and that has no involvement of third parties other than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Khurram Jugati from academia, I think, was registered for every session so far. So, Esther Passaris from the government, please. 68.
Distinguished delegates, as a legislator from Kenya and a champion for women and youth inclusion, I support child protection online, but not at the expense of equity and access. Age verification systems are currently designed often as currently designed, often exclude children in the Global South, especially girls, refugees, and those without formal identity documents. These risk deepening the digital divide and silencing the very voices we need to empower. We must develop context-aware, rights-based frameworks that protect children while respecting their rights to learn, connect, and grow. Protection should never become a barrier to participation. Let us prioritize literacy, ethical platforms designs, and inclusive partnerships with parents, educators, and tech providers. Empowerment, not restriction, should be our guiding principle. Why? Because child safety and digital access are not opposing goals. They are two sides of the same coin in a journey towards justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Anastasia Feuerstein from academia. Over there, 108, please.
Thank you. I'm Anastasia Feuerstein, and I'm the director of an academic campus specialized in cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, children as young as 8 wander freely through online realms not built for them, exposed to violence, exploitation, and manipulation. The Convention of the Rights of the Child calls us not only to shield, but to guide, recognizing that access to education, information, media, and free expression is not a luxury, but a right, inseparable from our obligation to nurture their digital literacy. So what should we propose? First, AI-driven content moderation with dynamic real-time filtering that does not merely block, but adapts, creating age-appropriate environments. Second, industry collaboration, binding cross-sector commitments where platforms, regulators, and civil society co-create safety by design, not as marketing vanish, but as structural DNA, transparently audited and meaningfully enforced. Third, digital literacy, embedded in schools, teaching children resilience, critical thinking, and the subtle art of navigating complexity. Because a safe internet is not only a matter of walls, but of wings. And finally, we must secure inclusive protection, ensuring that measures never exclude children from marginalized backgrounds, that digital rights are not the privilege of the well-documented few. So ladies and gentlemen, let's not build fortresses, let us build bridges. Let us rise to this challenge with not fear, but with courage and creativity, forging a Europe and a world where protection and possibility walk hand by hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please go. Oh. Registered.
If you registered,
196.
we were only listing confirmed participations, but if you are willing to participate with a statement, 196, go ahead.
Yes, I can say we're now moving into where everyone can participate, make their statements, and ask their questions. So if you have a statement, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abdul Kerim Gün. I'm the Vice President of Information and Communication Technologies Authority. As a public official representing Turkey, I want to emphasize that protecting children online isn't just a regulatory duty. It's a moral imperative. But how we do this matters just as much as why. Age verification mustn't become a gateway to surveillance or exclusion. It must be designed to empower, not to restrict disproportionately. In Turkey, we are actively engaging with this balance. Our national strategy promotes safer digital environments for children through education, parental tools, and regulatory oversight. But we are equally aware that under the Digital Services Act, and similarly in our own evolving regulatory framework, digital platforms must do more than acknowledge this responsibility. They must act on it. Age verification isn't just a compliance box. It's the gateway to safer digital environment for our children. We are now at a stage where AI tools have become powerful enough to support this task meaningfully. Advanced algorithms can detect patterns, verify identities with minimal friction, and adapt in real time to protect against misuse. But the question is, are platforms willing to use these tools in the interest of public good? We support innovation, but we cannot ignore the risks that unverified access to digital platforms poses to minors, be it exposure to harmful content, exploitation, or algorithmic manipulation. At the same time, we are deeply aware of the need to protect privacy and ensure equitable access to digital spaces. That's why we are calling for transparent, privacy-preserving, and AI-driven age assurance systems that do not collect unnecessary personal data, but still provide a strong protective layer for minors. We believe a unified approach across jurisdictions based on principles of accountability, child rights, and technical feasibility is possible, but the responsibility lies with online platforms. They must invest in and deploy their AI capabilities already used for content moderation and advertising for age assurance. This is not just a regulatory demand, it's a social expectation. We must ensure that the digital world remains open, but never at the cost of the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, now we're in the open dialogue, so I don't know if anyone has any questions of any of our experts that spoke today, or any questions you'd like actually to put out for general discussion of everyone that's here today. I have one in the back, please.
Okay, I think it's me, right? Okay, first of all, thanks, Karen, for pointing out that it's the big anniversary. I think it's really nice, not only because Joao, our online moderator, and I have been part of the big network for many years, since our school days, so really nice for shouting that out. I'm Katrin, I'm working for one of the media authorities in Germany, and we are actually responsible for the evaluation of age verification systems in Germany. And from over 20 years of doing that, of course, I haven't been doing this for 20 years, but some of my colleagues have, and it's really amazing to see what is possible today, and of course, to get it shown by all the people who are providing systems and see what we can do, and it's pretty easy actually to do it right. But of course, all the problems that have been mentioned, we also see them, so I don't want to repeat them, but I want to point out one important point that has also been made by Michael and Manon, which is the blocking out versus good participation of young people online. And I think when we look at content that is available online, we also look at the Digital Services Act and all the debates about illegal content online. And when we then say that we have to remove some of the content because it's illegal, because, for example, we in Germany have laws that say content is illegal when it's impairing the development of young people. So we then have to, of course, our platforms have to remove this content because it's impairing the development. But of course, for people who are over 18, the content would be totally fine. So creating spaces for young people and creating spaces for people who are over 18, then we can share different things which we cannot share at the moment because they have to take it down. And also it was mentioned that, sorry, I'm almost done. We also mentioned that it's really important the role of parents to take them into account, but our research shows that 72% of parents in Germany are not using any technical measures with their children. So my question would be, if we want to have parents taking part in that, how can we do that, and how can we assure that more parents are using technical measures like screen time and stuff with their children?
Thank you for those comments. I can say personally, have a 5-year-old that I thought I had set up all the appropriate parameters. So when she got on an iPad, she only had access to the things I thought were appropriate for her. I don't know how she did it, but she got somewhere where she shouldn't have been. And so for me, there's a lot more that can be done, and including my responsibility to actually sit with her next time she decides she's going to play a game to see where she goes off to. Anyway, do we have any other points? Yes, please.
Hello, My name is Yegor Yakhmurov. I'm from Ukrainian Ombudsman Office. I want to say that the question of age verification online is rapidly gaining relevance in Ukraine, particularly as we strive to better protect children from harmful digital content without undermining their rights to access information, privacy, and digital inclusion. As the context of Russian full-scale invasion, the online environment has become both critical space for education and communication, and a source of serious risks, including exposure to violence and manipulation. This creates a pressing need for balancing and rights-based framework for age assurance. I have a question for esteemed experts. So, for example, considering the successful experience of Spain in implementing online age verification mechanism for children and the prominent role played by the national data protection authorities, is this reform, I would like to ask your views about the appropriate institutional leadership for such an initiative. In your opinion, should this reform can be led by the data protection authorities, given its expertise in privacy and risk rights-based approach, or would it be effective for a digital policy-making body? Thank you.
Thank you. You say we have someone who will respond. David, please.
Thank you, Karin. I'm David Frauche from the Internet Society. I already knew this was going to be an interesting debate. And I think we have to go a little bit back. Tanya showed an example that it's not the same online that offline. I go to a place to buy a porn magazine. I show my ID. The guy says, yeah, you're over 18. You go out from the store with your magazine, and that ID has never been recorded. Yet, if I go to a porn site and I need to log in like this on somehow, this data can be stored, and this is a chilling effect that I might not, that might refrain me in the future to go online for these kind of services. So, yeah, we put a man in the moon a long time ago. But it's not that technically if it's possible or not. We cannot put someone in Mars and bring him back. So I wonder why we insist in trying to solve societal issues through technical solutions when most times this can be done by education at homes and also ensuring that spaces for kids have reporting mechanisms so kids can identify adults that are misbehaving there and say this person, this individual, this profile is doing wrong in this space. So we should go back and try to identify solutions on empowering kids because I see a rush in many governments, including the European Commission, to put in place solutions when most, if not all of the speakers today said we still need to be done more things. So before rushing to get a technical solution, let's make sure that we are doing the right thing.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So much. Is this working? Yes. I think a lot of very interesting points that I would like maybe to bounce back on the responsibility of parents and on the responsibility of children as well. Maybe going back to Catherine and see what's the role of parents there. I think it's super important to recognize that, first of all, a lot of parents don't necessarily have the digital literacy skills to actually deal with all of those parental control tools. We know that kids are on more than 40 platforms. Usually, that also means that parental control tools are different from one platform to the next. So as a parent, you should be able to actually go on all of those platforms, set up the right parental control tools on all of those platforms. Parents deal with a lot of, work, life, family life. I mean, I am not a parent myself, but I can only imagine, all of the things you have to deal with. So that's a lot of pressure to put on parents. And sometimes also the way those parental control tools are actually set up is that as a parent, you must have to register yourself on the platform, right? So the platform actually gets a new user as the parents to actually use those platforms just to be able to actually set up those parental control tools. I think also the way we see parental control tools, a lot of them can be also very privacy intrusive for children as well, right? And so there again, we need to have a bit more of a nuanced approach. We know that all kids are not the same. You evolved as a children, right? When we're talking about children, we're talking about everybody who is under 18, and a kid who is 12 compared to a kid who is 16 doesn't need the same level of privacy. And we know also that children, to actually be able to grow, to develop their identity, they need that level of privacy, right? So actually enabling your parent to surveil everything that you're doing online does not necessarily go forward in that direction. Does that mean that on top of having surveillance from big tech companies, we're also enabling surveillance from parents? We also know that from research, actually, the best way in which parents can actually support their children is not through control, but actually through discussion, through participation with them. So usually actually trying to restrict your kids via control tools is not the best way forward. And I also think it's very clear as well from the draft guidelines that we just got from the Commission on Article 28, which Article 28 of the DSA requires online platforms to ensure a high level of privacy, safety, and security for children. They looked at what they call tools for guardians, and then again here I think it's important to mention that not all children have parents. Not all children have parents who are online, and not all children have parents who might be, good for them. But then again, let's use the tools as tools for guardians. There again, they also recognize that those tools are actually only complementary, right? It's not because that you have good parental control tools that suddenly, your platform is actually safe. No. If your algorithm is still pushing harmful content onto children, whether or not as a parent you can see that that content is being pushed to the kids does not change, the actual root of the problem. So that's one thing about the role of parents. Secondly, about the responsibility on children. We're a children's rights organization, we work a lot with kids and they want to be empowered, they want to be, participating in this world and they want to be able to make right choices for them. But I think we need to recognize that right now, the way the online environment is being made is by a very few, powerful companies who are making money out of this, right? And as for any other regulatory environment, they actually have a responsibility to ensure that the users are actually safe. And in the same way that for kids, when you go to a supermarket and you buy a toy, you expect that toy to actually be safe for your kids because it's written that it is made for kids between 8 and 10. When you go online and that you're profiting from children, you also have that responsibility to then make that environment safe for kids. And in general, the way we see the online environment right now is that it's very manipulative in a lot of the designs, right? We see a lot of retention design. We see a lot of, notifications, measure, likes. Everything is really made to keep you online, infinite scrolling. All of those measures are very problematic, I think, for anyone as adults, but particularly for children as they are developing. They have, less ability to actually control all of those things. And so I think it's very cynical to ask children who are developing to actually be the one in control of an environment that was made to keep them online. So we need to make sure that, when we're talking about this topic, it's not about putting the responsibility on children, but actually putting the responsibility on the people who are actually benefiting from children right now.
No, thank you. And we've got a comment online, and then Tatiana will go to you.
Yeah,
please.
We have Ian from the panel. Just wanted to do a round. Ian,
Ian, please. And
thank you. Just briefly to respond to a couple of points. The question from the representative from Ukraine about whether the data protection authorities should step in and do this. I think what we have noticed is some data protection authorities in Europe don't have much faith in GDPR protecting people's privacy. And so they've advocated for more technical means to protect privacy. And this is often being called double blind, where you use zero knowledge proof, which is a form of privacy enhancing technology, to make sure that when you communicate the fact that somebody's over a certain age, that information cannot be traced back to the individual technically. So it's not just a legal protection under GDPR, but it's also a physical technical protection. We've taken that on board as an industry and built that into the age-aware interoperable ecosystem. The problem when the DPAs try to invent these things is they never consider the commercial market that needs to underpin the operation. So that's fine if governments are willing to spend the money on building these systems, operating customer services, and operating support to the relying parties to integrate them. But that's a very expensive job, and it's a big commitment from government. So if they want the private market to continue to do this work, then we do have to find a commercially sustainable business model, which can be achieved even with zero knowledge proof. And that's what we did with the age-aware ecosystem. And then on the question of whether we should just leave this to the parents, sadly, I mean, there are multiple opportunities for parents to add controls, but as our convener has herself pointed out, you can be the most committed parent you like, but you may not be able to cover all the bases. Every game, every platform has its own unique parental controls. That's an enormous investment in time for parents. And I don't think, we know that only about 1% of parents use some of the most popular platforms, parental controls. So that's not an adequate way of dealing, particularly for people who are perhaps less affluent and whose parents are less well educated and less capable of intervening to implement those measures. So I do think society needs to help those parents with these sort of broad age verification controls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And Tatiana, you had a comment as well.
Thank you very much. I would like to actually follow up on Ian's comment about putting a man on the moon. I absolutely loved it because it also reminded me that a few decades later, after we put a man on the moon, or a few men on the moon, a Mars mission failed because different teams in different countries were using imperial and metrics. And this is what exactly we are trying to avoid here. I was making an argument about rolling different technical solutions and having impact on the global interoperability on the internet. Another argument relates to the to those men on the moon. We somehow, in this room, I see a bit of contradictory things. We believe that technology can solve the problem, but at the same time, we recognize that there is a broader societal issue with parental controls, with trust, with multitude of aspects. And as to the technology itself, I'm going to make an example in the physical world. I think anybody who owns a newish car knows that the cars can now read the signs on the road. And the percentage of failure of them reading the road signs is quite high. It's very annoying for drivers. So if a car cannot read a sign on the road, if this technology cannot do this, I'm not entirely convinced that technology can solve the facial recognition issue. And it should not be a trade-off. Let's do it, it's good enough, but those who are excluded are exactly those who are excluded from many, many other things. And marginalizing them further will not do our society any good. And I'm very much aligned with the intervention of esteemed Kenyan legislator Esther Passaris, right? I hope I captured the name right. It is about those who left out, not only whom we let in. And this is incredibly important. And the last point about the man on the moon. We put the man on the moon, and we are sending Mars missions perhaps soon. It is very costly, and as Ian said, like when we leave some things to the private industry, we have to find solution. And this is why we're not sending the man on the moon anymore, because it's fuel, it costs, it's political decisions. At the same time, with all these missions, we're still confronted with the news about data breaches every day. I don't know, I opened my news application yesterday and I saw again the Marks & Spencer data breach. The news just keep coming, Marks & Spencer, the UK retailer. So this is not a trade-off for me. We shouldn't frame it as either or. And as I said, we absolutely recognize this problem. And I was happy to hear about ISO standards as well. We really have to make sure that we are moving toward some global agreement, building bridges, as one of the interventions said. Building bridges instead of creating trade-offs. including stakeholders, finding the solutions together. And in this regard, I'm so happy that we're having this dialogue today. I find it so enriching for us as well, as we are trying to propose our own solutions and consulting our community and the internet society. Thank you.
Yes, we have a comment online?
Yeah, so we have actually a few comments that are coming from the chat, which I'll briefly summarize. Yeah. Yes, I'll then hand the floor here to someone on site that took the opportunity to interact in a hybrid format with the participants online. So we have one comment from Denise that was mentioning, okay, one thing is age verification in specific platforms and services where children are logging in, but what about other services that do not require logging in and, for instance, advertising in those platforms? How can we safeguard children? Then another one from Lufuno was focusing on the broad scope of human rights that we need to enforce and how can we ensure a transversal approach to ensure the safeguarding of human rights in the digital space for children. And then I have, I'm sorry, because I'm just scrolling down the conversation from Tapani here on the floor, 148. He raised a comment on the chat that I would kindly ask him to elaborate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Tapani Tasvainen from Electronic Frontier Finland. And the point I wanted to raise is that while I appreciate and very much like that people have realized that age verification should be done without identification, but that is more difficult than it may seem at first, because identities tend to leak. And even if you are, let's say that poor implementation in particular can easily reveal the exact age even of the person in question. Even if it's designed to only tell it's old enough, repeated checks can still leak the exact age. The most trivial example is that the check fails today and succeeds tomorrow, then we know exactly that you are 18 today. But in even more general case, if it allows repeated checks where you're old enough at a given date, things like that, then it will easily leak that. And then added to other identifying things like the browser being used and operating system and so forth may easily lead to rather precise identification of the person in question. So the question is that how well do various age verification systems deal with this? Thank you.
Are there comments online? Okay. Well, we have time for one more intervention. Please.
Yes, thank you. I'm Pilar. I'm from Internet Governance Forum in Spain and former EuroDIGger. So here I would like to raise some points. First of all, regarding the digital wallet from the IRIS 2 regulation, and that from which Spain has been one of the main promoters, and I think has created a really good framework that Europe can start working on. First of all, how can we ensure that these practices can be expanded beyond Europe? It's supposed to be like this privacy protective to ensure that everyone can have this privacy online even when they access these web pages that children cannot access. Also, here I'd like to raise one of the EuroDIG messages that we brought in my year in 2023, and that we cannot have two internets, one internet for children, one internet for adults. Adults can enjoy their privacy and children cannot because they do not have encryption, because we have to protect them. This promotes internet fragmentation, and we just, as youth, we do not want that. We want everyone to have the same privacy and not just internets that are not completely separated. And finally, I'd like to raise a point on leaving this regulation, well, not regulation, but control to the parents or the tutors, because it could promote the marginalization of certain children groups that do not have the same access to the contents if we just leave it to parents or we just leave it to tutors. Maybe it should be left even to co-regulation between platforms and governments so that we can all reach the best solution that can benefit everyone. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we've got one more comment over here. Yes, sir.
My name is Valentin Koval. I'm the member of Ukrainian Media Regulator. And what I want to say that this session gave a little bit more Euroscepticism for me. Just because the only dilemma that we now have is to be kind to our children and to our future, or to tech companies. And from other side, we should understand that this place is not place for tech decisions and solutions. This place is the place for political decisions. So, and the decision could be only one: to protect the children, protect children. It's not a time to wait until, say, the civil society will sit in a row with big tech. It's no time to wait until North Korea will sit in a row with North Ireland. It's not a time when all other stakeholders gather together just to decide. We have enough, I hope, technical and political solutions to start this, because it's a real problem. It's not about to stop entrance to internet to children. It's just to stop them their entrance to risky part of internet. So we need to understand that it's not about the freedom of speech or freedom of getting information or even for freedom of entertaining. It's just the defense of our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to wrap up and then move on to capturing our messages, our output from this session. I mean, I think we've heard an awful lot about the need to be more age appropriate for access to information, as well as the balance for what might be technically feasible, and then balance that against what human rights, digital rights, and data protection, how that all applies and how that works. I think we have a lot of work to do still. There's a lot of aspects to think about as you move forward in terms of applying a technical solution against all the other criteria that are out there. I can tell you in my personal experience, the issue I had with my 5-year-old, I forgot to suppress pop-ups. She clicked on an ad that came up. So it was appropriate for the little game she was playing, not the ad. So there's more that needs to be done. So let me turn to our Desario, who's taking the messages for us. We need to review those and all agree that this kind of captures the essence of what we've covered this morning, and then that goes into the EuroDIG record. So please, Desario.
Hello, everyone. I'm Desara Dushi, Program Committee Member of EuroDIG. The first message is it is important to find the right way to address child protection with age verification tools, as these tools affect everybody, not just kids. They create risks to privacy and security, digital services, and impact to the global interoperable internet, which affects trust on the internet. To safeguard tools comply with to safeguard from these risks, we need to ensure that mandatory age verification tools comply with the requirements. We cannot have foolproof technology. The negotiations have to move to a global level involving all stakeholders. We must develop context-aware, rights-based approaches. The second message would be technology can deliver. To achieve the best interest of the child, we need to make internet age-aware, not identity-aware. The child-friendly platforms can only work if the internet knows at least the age range. However, we need to ensure that the measures taken do not leave anyone out, increasing the digital divide. And the last message is the digital environment wasn't created for children, even though many of them are now online. That's why we need to bring the children's perspective in the debate. Age assurance is not a one-step or single solution. While taking this measure, we need to make sure children are not excluded from the internet. By taking proportionate steps, including having more than one option. When designing an environment for children, we need to design it with them.
Okay, any comments on the messages, the output from our discussion this morning? Yes, please.
Yeah, hello, Mia Kulevin from the Internet Architecture Board. Just on the wording, the first point implies that there is a right way, which I think it makes more sense to provide a more neutral wording here. And then also it says mandatory age verification requirements need to comply with these requirements, but actually every age verification, not only the mandatory ones, need to comply.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other comments on what was captured as output from our session? Well, if there aren't any other comments then, or suggestions on our text, I'd like to turn it back over to our Master of Ceremonies to conclude our session. Thank you very much for all of your dialogue.
Thank you very much, Karen. We've done incredibly well with the time. Thank you very much. That gives everyone here a longer break. So thank you to everyone who contributed to this first session today. And at 11 o'clock, I believe, we'll be back here. There'll be coffee, I think, outside in front of the hemicycle again for some final networkings and final chats as we approach the end. Thank you very much, and see you soon.